Hey everyone, Scott here. Well, this is my new project. I am going to build myself a captain's chair. Yes, I am. I'm going to do it out of 2x4 and 2x6 construction because I'm a fairly full-seated guy. And I've had enough of people buying cheap furniture that breaks for over $1,000 these days. It just seems like everything that you can purchase is crap. Now I'm building this chair for my man cave because I'm going to be building myself a very handy command center. Basically, I'm going to build myself a captain's bridge because I am a gamer and I want to start using more elaborate simulations. I also love to fly, so I'm going to start getting more flight sims. And I figured this was a good idea rather than just buying some, $1,500 chair that probably wouldn't suit my needs quite as well and probably wouldn't last quite as long as I can make it. Now most of the things you see here are what I'm going to be using. I got a couple of 2x10 by 6s, well 2x6 10s, 10 foot longs. I got 2x4 8s. And I've got a 2 foot by 4 foot sheet of 3/4 inch spruce plywood. All this is spruce. I've also bought myself a couple of tools. I got myself a couple of lag bolts for the base. I got myself some safety gear because I'm going to need that. And one of these adjustable T-bevels, just because there's a couple angles that aren't perfect 45 degrees. Now, I've already had the skill saw and I've already had the T-square. So we're just going to go.
I picked up my camcorder and I decided to show you guys a little bit more. I need to explain this because I'm doing this commentary post-construction and I'm enjoying my 2 chairs as we speak. But I had to add one more 2x4 foot sheet of 3/4 inch spruce plywood because I needed some for the backing and for the sides. There's just various screws in there that I used as well. And on top of the skill saw, I also had access to a hand jigsaw and a hand drill, as well as a hand sander. And I figure with that would be more than enough to get this thing going. I wanted to build this so that it was simply constructed, so that anyone could do it with simple hand tools. So the first thing I need to do is cut the 2x6s. I need to make myself a base and a backing for it, so that I got a rest. And again, because this is the base, I want to use the 2x6s. They're a little stronger than the 2x4s. There is also, because this is construction grade lumber, these are lumber boards that are actually used for the studs of houses and things like that. They're a little rougher. There's some chips in them and things like that. However, I'm not going to worry about that because in the finishing process I can cover a lot of that stuff up. So first things first, we cut the sides. That's pretty straightforward. Try to get them as close as possible so you don't have any weird angles or edges. Then I have to cut the backing basically. At this point, this is what my back is going to rest against. They need to be a little bit longer than the sides because this chair is going to go up fairly high. It goes to the middle of the back of my head. Now the backing, I also want to cut off these 45-degree corners because that's going to give me a little bit of option so that I can recline the back a bit without hitting the base or going through the floor, as you can see here. Now, next thing I got to do is line up some holes on the sides of the base so that I can put my lag bolts through. I've got one giant half-inch lag bolt going through each side of it, and I clamp these boards together and drill through it once just so that the hole is as close to even as possible on both sides. Gonna do the same thing with the backing. I'm gonna clamp the board together and drill straight through. That way I can make sure that there's no wonky measurements or misalignment of the bolt when it's done, as you can see here. So that should be more than enough for backing. Plus it's not just going to rely on the lag bolt for the support of the back. So we attach the first piece together. As you can see, the lag bolt's going through the board, and that's going to be one side of the chair. I'm going to do that for both sides, as you can see here. And from that point on, then we need to make the front of the chair. Now, for this I actually had my girlfriend measure my butt for me. And I told her she couldn't laugh, but she did hysterically anyway. So this chair was designed for me to sit me and me alone, and I like the idea of custom. As you can see here, those front and backs are now, we made it the shape of a simple box. Now with the leg bolts there, I haven't got the backing in any position yet that we're going to basically rest at.
What I would call approximately the halfway point. This is the frame of it. It looks rough right now, but that's basically how I intended it. This is part of an experiment on my part. So the next step is I've got to put another piece in here to brace these on. These are some couch springs that I stole out of another old couch. I'm sure you can find them just about any old piece of furniture. And I'm going to recycle them here. Now I got several here, I'm not sure how many I'll need, but I've basically rescued everything else. Now I'm going to adhere them to the frame in the back, but first what I need is a piece to go back here, so.
Alright, so I'm back to dictating posts video here. At this point I had access to my girlfriend. She got home from work, so she was able to help me record a few things here. A lot of the video I did on my own, just to make sure that it happens like this, but when she was here, she was filming, and I can show you some of the more in-depth stuff. Just a quick word on safety whenever you're working with power tools. Make sure the cord's out of the way of the blade, make sure your fingers are out of the way of the blade. You know, power tools can be dangerous, so please, you know, if anyone's trying this at home, make sure to follow the manufacturer's safety warnings and maybe do it under the supervision of someone who's done it before. Now, with the two pieces of 2x4 I've got, I've basically set up a frame for the springs that I'm going to be using in the base of the chair. They're approximately 2 feet long, and I'm actually going to adhere them with zap straps. Now, you may be asking, well, why would you do that? And I'm like, well, I've used zap straps a lot. They're incredibly cheap, they're easy to come by, and they're actually surprisingly strong in a lot of cases. So, just using a tapping hammer here to kind of get the angle. I want a little bit of a gap between the front and the 2x6 or the 2x4 that I'm placing, so that I can put some strappage down in there. Now, this is where you kind of have to aim where your butt is in the chair, and you kind of have to visualize it at this point, but there'll be more on that as we go forward here. It'll make more sense. So, just going to use some screws now to put them in. I used nice 2.5-inch long screws, wood screws, to put most of the chair together. There's some situations where those were too long, and I had to use either 1-inch or 3/4 inch or even 1/2 inch in some situations, but most of that's just for finishing work. You want some good lag bolts, and if you really want to make it strong, you can also use white glue, carpenter's glue, same stuff you used to use in kindergarten. That stuff will make a bond that will not break, as far as I'm concerned, if it's done properly. So, just power drilling some more screws in here as we continue forward. So what I'm doing now is I'm going to measure some intervals to put some of these springs within the seat, and we'll see how that goes. I'm going to use the springs to basically cushion my butt, like they should be. You want to get these things fairly even and fairly centered to the marks on the thing. Now, just a note on the units of measuring I'm using. I'm actually Canadian, but I'm using American measuring units, inches, feet, things like that for now. These can be translated into centimeters and meters easily enough, which the rest of the world uses, and I'm fully aware of this. However, because of our proximity to the United States and Canada here, most of our lumber and things like that, and all of our building measurements are still in the imperial system that they use there. So, kind of have to learn both systems if you live in my area of the world. So, just gonna finish marking them off, and then I'm going to mark them off the back. That way I can make sure that the springs are as straight as I can make them. From this point on, we're just going to get them, and I'm just going to move forward here as we go. I'm going to start using the straps to line up the springs one by one, just roughly to get an idea of where they should be. I'm also going to use the zap straps to connect the springs to the wood and to each other. This will give you a bit more of a seat of support, I guess is the term for it. As you can see here, these are just hooked in, and this is very similar to how they were hooked up to the chair that I pulled them out of, really. Just some piece of cheap crap that we had gotten somewhere in a garage sale that was over 10 years old, and it was breaking and falling apart. And this is actually what prompted me to build this chair, is that, for the amount of money we spend on our furniture, it's pretty ridiculous about how long we can really expect it to last. And in my case, I'm a big dude. I'm not gonna lie, you can tell by the video. I tend to be kind of hard on furniture, and I made a little mistake with this one, so I had to break the spring off and try again. But that's the wonderful thing about these zap straps. They're so cheap and easy, and they're a great way to get things centered and adjusted so that you can play with it before you actually lock things down. As you can see here, this is attempt number 2 with this particular spring. And the reason is, I want the springs to be sitting on top of the wood. I don't want them to fall down in between it, because at that point they become useless to me. So, I'm just tightening down and holding it, making sure that it's all good, set up correctly, and then I will move to the front and do the same thing again. As you can see, that's what the spacing between the 2x4 and the 2x6 is for. It's just to allow me to put the zap straps around it. Those zap straps wouldn't have been long enough to go around the 2x6, and plus that would have meant that they would have been sticking out the front of the chair a bit. Plus, since I'm moving the quote-unquote seat part of it back a little bit, that means I can recline back, because you basically want these springs under the heaviest part of your body, which would be your, the rear of your derriere, your butt, basically under your tailbone, where the rest of you sits upright. So you kind of want this back fairly close to the actual back of the chair, more than closer to the front. Now again, if I had been using longer springs, or the springs that I had rescued had been longer, I could have gone all the way to the front and the back, which probably would have made for a softer chair. But I was working with what I had. And again, you can actually get a bunch of this stuff custom ordered. I've checked it out, and I found a few parts that you could buy if you wanted to do custom furniture. So just skipping ahead, this is when I've got the springs across, and now I'm just using a pair of pliers to pull the zap straps as hard as I possibly can to make sure they're tight and there's not much movement. I've actually repaired furniture before with zap straps. There's other ways to do it if you were so inclined. Again, I wanted to keep this fairly simple so that anybody with basic hand tools could do something along these lines. And I mean, you could take these ideas and basically apply them to other types of furniture as well. What will sit on top of the springs from here will be some foam. We had some foam that I got out of an old bed that we could use, but we'll get more on that later. Now you can see what I'm doing is I'm actually attaching zap straps to pull the springs, hold them laterally to each other. This will actually make them firmer, so that they have more support, and they support each other as well in the middle. This means that, again, the seat will get a little firmer, but it also, will distribute the weight a little bit more even across the whole area of it. Anyway, this is the seat when a zapping is complete. As you can see here, it does sort of pull on each other no matter where the weight rests, and it gives me a good, resistance. The springs don't move. Should work fairly well from here. So now I'm actually going to start building the backing of it. These are just 2x4s that I built and cut to add a little more structural strength to the backing of it. I'm actually going to rest another piece of plywood on it. I like my stuff strong. What can I say? It makes it easier, makes it last longer, makes it more durable. The backing on this is not going to be too fancy. I decided not to go with springs. I decided just to go with a solid backing and a good amount of foam, as you will see here shortly. Just applying screws, and as you can see here, it's a little wonky at times, but it can be done. Fairly easily done.
This is an old mattress from a foam bed that we had that's no longer of any value to us. So I'm going to cut it up and use it for the foam of my chair. The first thing I'm going to do is make a little.
So at this point, I'm just going to cut this in half here. This is actually 2.5-inch foam, and there's 2 layers of it in this bed. We kind of lucked out. Again, I did some price checking. You can find this kind of stuff at furniture places, or like there's a business in town here called Foam King that also offers it. But to get it purchased, I mean, that might have been one of the more expensive individual pieces of the foam. It's unbelievable how much they want for this stuff. So first we just hack it up into little pieces, or at least I just hacked it in half because, quite frankly, there's way more than I needed, and I needed to make it a bit more manageable. So this is the first section. I got 2 pieces, and it's going to sit on the base of the chair. Approximately get it lined up. You can trim to suit as necessary after that. I decided after the fact I was actually going to go with a 3 thick because 2 was not quite enough, in my opinion. Now I'm applying the back to it. Basically just cut that sheet of 3/4-inch spruce plywood to fit my back, and I wanted it just to basically sit there and line up properly. So from here I've gotten my second piece of 2x4 sheet of 3/4-inch spruce plywood, and we're going to cut it in half because this is going to be the basis for the arms. I want very large arms on this so that I can support a lot of equipment and basically make it a usable platform to mount a lot of my peripherals. Now that I've split the plywood lengthwise and I've got two approximately 2-foot pieces wide and they're about 4 feet long, I drill a small hole in the corner because I need to take out approximately 1 inch of material to make it fit the chair so that I have a little bit of a backing to attach it. And I start with a drill just so that I can end up with a fairly decent hole, and then from there just take a rip saw to it. Now these are going to basically be the legs or the feet of the chair itself. They're going to attach to the back, and I'm just making sure that the measurement is as close to ideal as I can. If you get your feet off, they can actually make it uneven. Now, at this point, I can, I've got the arms, which also, are the bases of the arms, which also function as legs, and then I've got the legs attached to the back. This was basically a balance test. From here, we attach the sides after I ripped them. As you can see here, I've got the foam roughly cut into place. This is starting to look like what the final layout of the chair will be. So we'll just continue on from here. Now that I've got the basic layout set up, you can see how I put the feet in the back is. I got the angle approximately where I want it. We basically continue forward. Now this is still very, very loosely screwed together. It's not secured at this point. So the next step is to add some bracings, to sand it so that it's fairly smooth. It's not that rough lumber that you get slivers and things like that. So now this is basically the final shape, and at this point, this is when we start to get into the final prep. As you can see, I've sanded the edges so they're round and things of that nature. But for the most part, you get it. And now I took a couple of spray cans, colored the parts of the chair that you'll see black, and I also used a textured paint that I got from the hardware store that kind of mimics stone a little bit, and that actually hides a lot of the issues, and that's just got a neat little like white flaky pattern to the end of it. So the next thing we got is I had my girlfriend sew me up some covers for the cushions. As you can see, the base and the top are basically almost complete, and then I just had to cut foam to fit to the sides that I wanted. Now I've got the cushions for the side made, and they're approximately where I want them to be. I'm going to actually put them down to the chair with Velcro tape at a later time, just to adhere them. Now this is when I actually brought it into the basement. You've got to understand I have to bring this chair in pieces because of the large arms won't actually fit through doors. But as you can see, this is where I begin to wire it, and I've actually built myself a little tablet holder that holds my 10-inch Asus transformer tablet for me. So I've got a little side peripheral. You can see my gamepad that I use there. Parts and pieces all over the place. Getting a little closer to being done. I've started wiring stuff up. As you can see, the tablet sitting in there, my mouse on the one side. But this isn't very complete. I've got 2 speakers on the back that actually plug into. They're just a simple 2.0 stereo system from the old computer that I had that I never used, and I just basically wired those into my transformer so that the sound from it actually goes in behind, as you can see. This is the first part. Now I'm starting to add more hardware and things like that, so we're going to continue forward. This isn't even anywhere close to being done. Yeah, just finishing off what's left at this point. I had to wait for my HOTAS system to show up for a week before I could actually use it. As you can see here, I picked up a Satec X55 system that I started to mount to it. So now we're adding more stuff to it. I've also picked up a 5.1 stereo system. As you can see, there's a second set of speakers on the back. That's for the actual stereo connected to the computer. Now I've also built a mouse pad off to the side of the joystick, and my gamepad is actually off to the side of my throttle stick. This old Nostradamo N52 from Belkin that I bought several years ago. It still works great. And finally, I mounted a keyboard on the right-hand side behind the joystick just for my little hotkey presses. And this is basically going to be the final setup. I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you learned something from it. That's how I built this chair, and I'm really going to enjoy it, I guarantee it. It's turned out quite comfortable. I've got all the controls at my hands, and it beats any old bathtub cockpit any day. So let's get to enjoying it.
See y'all in the verse.